Welcome back to the channel.
Today we are talking about our Sweethearts night experience at Disneyland in depth. So
if you're thinking about going to one of the after hours events, or maybe you're thinking about next year planning to go to Sweethearts night, come get lost with us today and find out what it's all about. All right, so let's talk about Sweethearts night.
yeah, so this was our first after hours event at Disneyland. The Halloween thing that we did the year prior wasn't really an after hours event, it was a party.
I don't see any difference though after I've gone into one. I don't know why you keep differentiating it like that. There was no free stuff at the after hours event, so it was just a party.
Yeah.
Like there's no difference.
Well, so this was our first
Well, this is our first Disneyland after dark type of thing. I mean, other than when we were in the park after dark.
Yeah. So, I went in really excited. I was actually really excited to go to this. I don't know what I was excited for. I think I had my expectations maybe were a little high, hoping that they would have just like different stuff. They were supposed to have a lot more character meet and greets than they ended up having.
One thing you want to do is, we did go to an after hours event at Disney World, and you can check that out on our YouTube channel if you want to check that out. That was an amazing experience. It was super fun. It goes back to kind of what we talked about a second ago. They actually had free food,
And drinks.
snacks. You didn't get free food, you got snacks, which were like pretzels and ice cream bars and Mickey sandwiches, ice cream. I don't know what those are called.
Yeah, you could have any of like
sodas.
any of the frozen treats, pretzels, popcorn, and sodas.
And none of that
And water.
stuff was at Sweethearts night.
Yeah.
None of that there. The ticket is probably about double what it was when we went.
Yeah.
And you get none of the stuff that you used to get. Other than you did get a lanyard, which was nice. The lanyard's cute, but it's just a lanyard. It's just laminated piece of paper. It's not.
Which I can appreciate the lanyard over the wristbands because we went to another after hours event at Disney World after our first one, and they no longer gave out the lanyards at Disney World. They only gave out wristbands, which was a little frustrating. So I can appreciate that Disneyland does that, but again, it's not worth paying $130.
Was that one of our annual pass perks the second time we went?
No, I feel like we paid for another event. I feel like we paid to go to another one. I could be wrong, but I know we didn't film it. So we just went, I think, to just enjoy it. But we did do a lot of pass holder nights, and those, they never gave you a lanyard for pass holder nights.
Right, but that's not what we're talking about. So that is true that I don't know if Disney World does it now in the after hours events. It goes back to the lanyards. I don't know that yet. But again, that's a very small trinket for like $120 for 4 hours.
Probably the highlight of my night is I did find the Mickey Sipper Cup that I wanted, but I didn't have to go to the party to get that, so that was kind of a bummer. So we got to the park about 3 hours before the event because they let you in early.
Yeah, they let you in at 6.
So we got there, we went in with the whole group of people. So we had 3 hours to kind of ride everything we wanted to ride, and honestly, we did. In those 3 hours, we rode Big Thunder, Pirates, and Haunted Mansion was closed for refurb. We used a return time to ride the Star Wars ride.
Rise of the Resistance.
Rise of the Resistance. And the biggest disappointment I think that kicked off our entire night was we really, and honestly, Disney didn't announce this, I just assumed, but we assumed that they would open up the Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railroad for the party, because why not? Like, it's a good group to test it with, like, that's all you're doing right now, is doing testing. So I figured they would open it up for the party, and they didn't. They only had it open for Lightning Lanes, which is the paid to ride.
Yeah, when we went to the Oogie Boogie Bash, Web Slingers was in a similar situation. It had just came out like the week or so before, and it was still in the virtual queue crap that they do. And when we went to the party, we were able to ride as much as you wanted. We only rode it once because it's basically like a Six Flags ride. If you haven't rode it before, it's fun, but it's not Disney. It's not a Disney ride in my opinion. So we figured the exact same thing would happen with Sweethearts Night, but it did not. It did not. They didn't have it open. You couldn't even go back in the Toontown area and look around, which I thought was ridiculous. But if you bought a Lightning Lane, they let you stay there as long as you want. They didn't care.
Yeah, because I was like, oh, I just want to go look around. They're like, oh, no, you have to have a Lightning Lane. And so I looked. They released Lightning Lanes. We paid about $25, $26 for both of us to go back there. And then everybody was just like back there hanging out, playing with everything that was open. So I don't understand why you couldn't have gone back there. It made no sense to me as to why we couldn't just go back there and walk around. Yeah, granted, the whole land wasn't open yet, but there was a little bit that you could like go and wander around, and that's all we were gonna do. It's not like we could sneak into the line. You had to like show them proof that you could ride the ride. So, and there was nobody back there either. That was the other kicker. Once we actually got on the ride, there was nobody back there, and we still got a shitty seat.
Yeah, well, that's a whole nother conversation that I want to have. But like the land, it's pretty much done. I know that they have a Mickey and Minnie's house back there that was still boarded off. And I know that there's a Gizmo from Rescue Rangers ride that I'm pretty sure is in Toontown too. And that you couldn't get to either. But you could get over by Roger Rabbit's Spin. You could get over by like the town hall area with the fireworks stuff. You know, it's goofy, literally goofy, I guess, but like it's goofy area, but still it doesn't make any sense why you couldn't just walk back there and look at that. It's not going to hurt anybody. And there's nothing, I just don't get it. It's like Disney is trying to make things exclusive for the wealthy, but the wealthy aren't going to want what Disney's offering because of how they offer it. Like, I don't want to be treated like a piece of scum. And that's what I felt like there. And we'll talk about this later with the cast member issues and stuff that we had. It's just really weird. It's definitely a different feeling. And we didn't go to Disneyland before COVID, so I guess there's kind of that. I don't really know what it was like before and the before for, but man, it's just not what Disney World was.
But we know we know what Disney World was like before 4. And I would have to imagine that Disney, like that way of being a cast member extends into all branches of Disney. So I think the fact that we dealt with some very difficult cast members that night was a testament to where Disney is going with a lot of the decisions that they're making, because they're not giving raises, they're not treating their cast members decently, so they're going to leave. So all of your good talent is going to leave. And then what are you left with? You're left with like the middle of the road, bottom of the barrel. And those people don't rise to the occasion, and they don't give a shit if you have a nice time that night or not. They don't. They don't care. So
yeah, and kind of understandably too, if you're not paying anybody well, I can understand why you can't expect them to do very much. But at the same time, you're paying a shit ton of money to get in there, and Disney should pay them better so that we can have a better experience.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly.
Let's talk about Runaway Railroad just a second. So we got there, we got to the back. You can actually watch the full video on our YouTube channel if you want. But we got to the back. We had to get the Lightning Lane. We finally got past there. Then you get like the second checkpoint right in front of Runaway Railroad, which the theater is super cool. I thought the theater was really designed well. I like the little trinkets. I like the lobby with like the different movie memorabilia, but they're like Pluto's tree from the Christmas Story or Jack and the Beanstalk's secret beans or whatever. And those things were really cool. I thought that design was really cool.
Well done.
And the exterior of the building, looking like an actual old school movie theater and stuff, was super cool.
Instead of like what they have at Hollywood Studios, which was just a refurbished.
Yeah, they basically just refurbed the old Chinese theater basically, and now the inside's different. But it was super cool. Like the exterior was cool, the line stuff's cool. The movie posters were really neat. Looking at like old Disney cartoon movie posters, those were super cool. And then like the crossovers too, where they had like Honey I Shrunk the Mouse and stuff like that. Awesome. The queue was cool. You get to the ride and you have the little movie theater show. Hit or miss. Yeah. It's cute. It's nothing. The theater's not that big. From other YouTubers that we've watched do them in Orlando, it just seemed like the room was bigger, but it's really not that big. It's more like Aerosmith space and Rock and Roller Coaster.
I will say in Orlando, and I'll have to see when we actually do go to Orlando later this year if we end up riding this ride. But the Great Movie Ride, the theater, because there was always a pre-show before the Great Movie Ride, and that room was quite big. So I wonder if it just looks bigger in Orlando because they're using that space versus Anaheim where they had to build the space and they didn't make it that big. So we'll have to do a side-by-side comparison of East Coast versus West Coast versions.
Yeah, and if you've rode both of them, let us know in those comments too. I'm interested because, it just seemed like a much bigger space and it was smaller. And nothing wrong with that. I don't have any opinions either way. It was just kind of interesting seeing that smaller space. And then, of course, the screen blows up, and then we go to the ride. Now, this is the thing that bothered me. We paid, I know Nacy said we paid about $25, but I think we paid $17 per person, which would equal $34 plus tax. So we paid probably about $36 to ride this ride. That's a lot of money. And to start with, if you think about it, we paid $120 to go to the event, and then we also paid $30-something, which is almost like a fourth of the ticket price just to ride one freaking ride. A little
Excessive.
And then so we get past there, and then you get in your queues, and then they sat us in like this horrible seat in the back of the train.
And I specifically asked if we could have in the front row, and they were like, "Oh yeah, like
that's
here."
it right there." And it was like, "No, that's the back of the train." Like the furthest car from the front we sat in. There was only 2 other people in the ride, and they were right behind the caboose. And then there's us all the way in the back.
It was weird.
And why that's important is because when we started riding the ride, the first scene you really get to, past like some ooh, look at all the pretty orange bird merchandise guy, whatever his name is, the merchandise bird. You get past his little scene, then you get to this scene where Mickey hits the railroad stop, if you've ever actually seen the full video. He hits like the railroad stop. We were so far away that scene had already occurred before we got into that area. It was like, are you kidding me? We just paid $17 to ride this ride, and I'm not even going to see it. That was super noticeable. Then we went through a couple other areas and we got pretty much the same experience because they actually shoot you off into your individual section and they have the screen in front of you. But when we got to Daisy doing the cha-cha dance, we got in literally right before she started doing the cha-cha. We didn't get any of the basic stuff. Like we missed that whole scene in its entirety too. It's insane. I'm like, we just paid $17 a piece to ride this ride, and we're not even getting the experience? Like, this is unreal. Unreal.
Yeah, it was a bit of a bummer. And honestly, and then the other issues we ran into was there's a couple of special effects that weren't working that we knew about just because we've watched videos.
Right, like Mickey didn't come up in the windstorm. He's supposed to come up with Minnie and do like a floating through thing in the fair scene. That wasn't there, it was just the TV.
Yeah, and Goofy's train thing kind
just
of
totally shut off.
Like cut out at the end.
And we were supposed to go one way and then all of a sudden we started going the other way.
It was weird.
So I'm not really sure what happened there at all.
Yeah, we'll have to write it again just to kind of see if that's really the way that you exit, because it seems different.
Yes.
On camera, the videos that we've watched.
Right. It was a very weird, because like you can tell us too in the comments if you've wrote it. Basically, we got to the end scene right before we get off, and Hook, what's his name, supposed to reattach to us, and the train track forms in front of us.
But then we get pulled back.
And then all of a sudden we got pulled back, and then Pluto was in front of us this way instead of where the train tracks were. I'm not really...
It was weird.
It was just weird. I don't know. Maybe that's what it's supposed to be. Again, this was our first time riding it. But then we get off it, and the queues the exit queues, interesting. Basically, you go through another theater. It looks like the first theater. And then you walk outside to Toontown, which was pretty much open, except for a couple little areas.
And a lot of the exit part was covered in... scrim, because they were still trying to finish it, which, whatever, I understand the ride's not fully open yet, but we got off the ride and it was just kind of like, I don't think that was worth A, the money,
no,
B, the headache,
yep.
And it just kind of just made the rest of the night just kind of sucked. The rest of the night just kind of had this ER cloud over it that was like, well, I feel like this isn't magical anymore.
Yeah, I kind of related to the day that we were moving out of Orlando. We went to the parks for the last time, and our moving company called and were trying to steal our stuff and like holding it for ransom. And like once one of those bad events happens to you, it just sort of sullies the whole experience.
And
like
it's
it
hard
really
to get
does.
over. It's really hard
Yeah.
to get over unless something amazing happens. And nothing amazing happened that night. They had the traditional like fireworks show because we still hadn't gotten out. Like they still had the regular crowds. And then we were hungry. And when I looked to order food, we couldn't pick any food up until like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And it was only 7 o'clock at that point,
Yeah.
7, 8 o'clock. And I was like, what is going on? It was crazy. I'm like, I'm just hungry. I want actual food.
And the weird thing was, we would go past restaurants and stuff, and there weren't anybody there.
They
Like,
were empty.
Even the Golden, it wasn't the Golden Horseshoe, is that where we went? Even at the Golden Horseshoe, there was only like 10 people inside, and they were all just eating their food. There was no one waiting in line. There was no nothing. But if you wanted to virtual order, you couldn't get it till like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And we're like, I don't understand what is happening here.
So you were kind of forced to actually physically go to a restaurant and order in person, which I feel like defeats the purpose of virtual ordering. Unless you have plans to go ride rides for 2 hours and you're going to place your order and in 2 hours you're good to eat. Okay, that might work for you. But if you're somebody who's like, oh, I want to skip whatever line is currently at that restaurant, you're screwed.
Yeah, I mean, it was annoying, but at the same time, it was kind of indicative of like the night itself. It was so, it clearly looked hastily put together. They clearly reused the thing from the previous year from other vloggers that we've watched. It was the exact same event it was the previous years. There was nothing added to it. There was a boat ride where they basically played music on the boat and you could dance. Whoop-de-doo. There was an area where they had a dance party where like the prince and princesses would come and dance. Again, I'm not a big character guy, so I can't really speak to that. Like that may be something that really excites you if you're a character person, but I'm not. I don't really. It's fine, but it's not something that I do. And then there were projections on the main street, and that was it. And like a couple photo spots.
Yeah, and the Sweethearts night fireworks wasn't anything to write home about. It wasn't that cool. It just wasn't that cool. So we kind of left, maybe about an hour after fireworks, we ended up leaving. We kind of rummaged through all the stores just to see if there was any merchandise worth grabbing. I didn't find anything.
I mean, there wasn't much Sweethearts Night merch to begin with, and we found more Epcot merch than we found Sweethearts Night merch, which was weird, and sadly, I feel like the direction Disney is going right now.
Yeah. Apparently all the Coco merch is Epcot merch.
Didn't even notice that, but not surprising.
Coco and Encanto are both just like all Epcot because it's Mexican and it's from the Mexican Pavilion and Epcot. So they're just like dual branding it between the two. And it's like, that's just not going to work. Like,
it's just cheap. Just cheap. I felt like being there. I love Disney, but it was frustrating that so many rides were closed for an event. So many rides were closed. I mean, like so many. I would say almost half the park's rides were closed. And then you have on top of that, you have the area that's forbidden unless you pay more to go to. And then on top of that, the cast members, like we would be getting pens or like in one of the stores, and the cast members would literally shove us aside to start restocking the pens as we're sitting there looking at it. And it was like, you couldn't wait 10 seconds? Like we're just seeing what's here. We're not, nope. Had to shove right in front of us, started stocking, then had a whole conversation in front of us with another cast member. I'm employee. I'm kind of hesitant to call them cast members if you're not going to treat them like human beings. But like, you had a whole employee conversation in front of us, and it was just like, what's going on here? Like, where are we?
Different. It's definitely different. And the magic, I think, is what is.
Oh, it's gone.
That's what brings people to Disney is the caring, and it feels like a different place. And it's just slowly been evolving over the last couple of years, not in a good way. But definitely changing in how they treat the people in the park and how the cast members are treated. And, it's a downward spiral, and it's kind of left us to the point where we're like, well, Disney's not really a top priority.
Yeah, and then to top that off too, when we went to the food, the cast member took our order, doubled your order for chicken nuggets or whatever. So we got 2 things of chicken nuggets, didn't listen. Then we asked for 1 soda without ice, didn't care, just made it regular, gave it right to us. It was like, could not care less.
Yeah.
And it's definitely like, Universal does pay better, so I'm guessing Disney is hemorrhaging bad because there are very few cast members there that cared, that gave a shit, that did anything that you would think Disney is. And it's like, it's on Disney for paying them so bad. Like, this is the result that you're going to get. You can't just keep cheaping out and charging more and expecting a better experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the bottom line has to be you have to treat your employees, and that's for any business, you have to treat your employees with decency and a living wage so that they can actually live their life and have a life outside of work. Everybody deserves to have a life outside of work. And yeah, you can work and love what you do, but you have to be able to afford a life that you can still enjoy your life outside.
Yeah. So what do you think cost-wise for the event? Like, would you do it again?
Overall, for an after-hours event, no, because like we mentioned before, there's no free food, no free drinks. So what's the perk? Like, what is the perk that I'm getting by paying this much money? The crowds, honestly, from the time that we got there to the time we left, or fireworks, I should say, didn't seem like they thinned out that much.
Agreed. I was going to say, actually, especially in the time between 6 o'clock and the event actually starting, it was more filled than we had ever seen it. So it was literally
you're not getting
packed.
a break when it comes to crowd levels.
Yes.
And our event was a sold out night according to the sign, so that could have had a factor in it too. But I would rather just pay the actual ticket price for a full day in the park because it's going to cost me about the same. I'm going to get more time in the park and I can take a break. Because I think that's one thing that we've learned that we like to do when we go to Disney now is we like to go in the morning before crowds get really heavy. Around lunchtime, we go back to our hotel and we just hang out and chill for a couple hours, maybe even 6 or 7 hours. And then we go back and finish out the last 4 or 5 hours of the night and maybe just people watch or maybe get like a bite to eat and just ride one ride. But we don't do like a full day in the park, but we enjoy being able to have that break if we need that break. And when you go to an after hours event, you don't really get that break. You kind of have to be there because that's it. You get those 6 hours and that's all you get.
Yeah, I think my argument too is like you pay almost the exact same amount for a regular day ticket as you are for these events anymore. So it doesn't make sense to go to the events. The event's only 4 hours. You have a whole day if you go to the regular day. Mm-hmm. Other than if you have a passion for meeting those rare characters, maybe. But we didn't even see that many. We saw photo ops. Most of the photo ops that we saw were like cardboard cutouts or just pieces of wood cut out to look like the character, like the Lady and the Tramp scene. It was basically like you had the chef in the back and he was just a piece of wood that was cut out to look like him. You had a fake bowl of pasta on the table, some fake bread, a tablecloth, and a table. That was it. Mm-hmm. You could create that yourself anywhere you wanted to, folks. Like, there's no reason. Like, that's not magical. That's not anything even interesting, honestly. And people were waiting, like, hours to get that shot for whatever reason. And I was just like, wow. But if that's what you like, I get maybe why you go there, but there's other ways you can do it. Seriously. Just figure it out. Like, I just don't see it as worth it.
Agreed. So that was our Disneyland experience. And if you guys want to check out that night, we do have the videos posted, so you can check out everything we did that night. But sadly, I enjoyed our hotel way more than I enjoyed Disneyland. And
yeah, the hotel definitely is amazing. You need to check that out. That's on our channel. It's probably the best fireworks off a Disney property that you can get around Disneyland. Definitely check that video out too while you're here. And if you're on our YouTube page watching the preview, make sure to hit that like button.
Make sure you hit that subscribe button.
And ring that notification bell so you get notified when we do at least 3 videos a week.
And we'll come and get you guys for the next one.
Ain't that the truth, baby Ruth? And if you want to see this in its entirety, make sure to head over to our Patreon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.